Published 1556 Est, the 4th of November 2017. Updated 0207 Est, the 5th of November 2017. First Lady Melania Trump kicked off her heels and opted for a pair of comfy flats as she and President Donald Trump waved goodbye from Air Force One as they prepared to leave Hawaii. The commander-in-chief is headed on a 12-day tour of Asia, the longest trip to the continent by an American president in more than a quarter century. The First Lady was wearing a long green dress decorated with blue and black palm leaves with a light pink trim on the bottom and matching pink flats, as well as her standard oversized sunglasses. She was escorted by Command Commander Admiral Harry Harris to Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam as the Trumps prepared to travel to Yokota Air Base in Fusa, Japan. Scroll down for video. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump greet people before departing for a 10-day Asia trip from Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Honolulu. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump waved goodbye from Air Force One as they prepared to leave Hawaii. The First Lady was wearing a long green dress decorated with blue and black palm leaves with a light pink trim on the bottom and matching pink flats, as well as her standard oversized sunglasses. She was escorted by Command Commander Admiral Harry Harris to Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam as the Trumps prepared to travel to Yokota Air Base in Fusa, Japan. The commander-in-chief is headed on a 12-day tour of Asia, the longest trip to Asia by an American president in more than a quarter century. The President and First Lady laid a wreath and threw hibiscus flowers into the sea on Friday at a Hawaii memorial for U.S. soldiers who died at Pearl Harbor nearly 80 years ago. Before embarking on his first official tour of Asia, Trump said he eagerly anticipated a visit to Pearl Harbor, where thousands of service members paid the ultimate sacrifice, getting ready to land in Hawaii. "Looking so much forward to meeting with our great military veterans at Pearl Harbor," Trump tweeted aboard Air Force One as he neared the end of a 10-hour flight from Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump took a ferry to a memorial for soldiers killed during the attacks on Pearl Harbor in 1941. The memorial for those who died on the USS Arizona is located on Ford Island and is only accessible by boat. A U.S. Coast Guard gunboat protects President Trump and his entourage as he departs by boat from the USS Arizona Memorial in Honolulu. The President and the First Lady throw flowers during their visit to the USS Arizona Memorial on Friday in Honolulu. Admiral Harris and his wife Bruni Bradley accompanied the Trumps soon after the attack on Pearl Harbor. It was decided that the USS Arizona would remain at the bottom of the harbor as the final resting place for those lost. The President and First Lady looked down into the water at the wreckage of the USS Arizona. The Trumps are seen laying a wreath at the USS Arizona Memorial on Friday. The memorial honors the lives of 1,177 sailors and Marines who were killed. Almost half of the casualties at Pearl Harbor occurred on the Arizona, which was hit 4 times by Japanese bombers. There were 37 confirmed pairs or trios of brothers assigned to USS Arizona on December 7, 1941. Of these 77 men, 62 were killed, and 23 sets of brothers died. The President's senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, attended the wreath-laying ceremony. Trump's national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, looks on during the wreath-laying ceremony. 2 U.S. Navy sailors stand beside the wreath laid by President Trump and the First Lady at the USS Arizona Memorial. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly Wright takes a moment to himself after the wreath-laying ceremony. Kelly reads the names of the fallen soldiers on the wall of the memorial. A retired 4-star Marine general, Kelly's son, was killed while serving in Afghanistan. The monument is run by the U.S. National Park Service. An NPS official is seen above briefing the President and the First Lady on their visit. Trump toured the USS Arizona Memorial at Pearl Harbor, which marks the resting place of more than 1,000 sailors and Marines who were killed on the battleship during the Japanese surprise attack on December 7, 1941. Accessible only by boat, the memorial straddles the battleship's sunken hull. More than 2,300 sailors, soldiers and Marines died as a result of the attack, as well as 68 civilians, according to the National Park Service. Trump saluted after entering the memorial following a short boat ride with the First Lady. They approached a wreath of white flowers, a gift from the couple, and watched as 2 sailors placed it near a wall of names of those who died after a surprise attack by Japan that plunged the U.S. into World War II. The Trumps then tossed white flower petals into the water above the battleship's sunken hull. Trump did not speak publicly at the memorial. He said during an earlier meeting with military officials that he eagerly anticipated the visit. Trump landed in Hawaii on Friday as he set out on the longest trip to Asia by an American president in more than a quarter century, looking for help to pressure North Korea to stand down from a nuclear crisis. President Trump is welcomed by U.S. Navy Admiral Harry Harris, commander of United States Pacific Command, at its headquarters in Aiea, Hawaii. The U.S. Pacific Command oversees U.S. military operations in the region. Recent tensions with North Korea have kept American military commanders preoccupied. A key discussion topic likely will be North Korea's nuclear threat, a crisis that will shadow Trump's trip. Trump will also tour the USS Arizona Memorial, part of the Pearl Harbor site dedicated to the attack that drew the U.S. into World War II. Also accompanying Trump on his trip is White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, who is seen left looking on during the president's meeting with Admiral Harris. Second from left, Trump looks on during a meeting with military brass at U.S. Pacific Command PACOM in Aiea, Hawaii. PACOM covers more of the globe of any of the other geographic combatant commands and shares borders with all of the other 5 geographic combatant commands. She departed Friday for Japan, the first stop on the 5-nation, 11-day Asia journey. In Japan, Melania will have an all-female squad to protect her. Tokyo police has trained an all-female riot squad to protect Melania and Ivanka Trump. Their task is to protect the First Lady and First Daughter from female admirers who may try to approach them with gifts and flowers, according to Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun. Police say they are expecting large numbers of eager admirers to gather in order to catch a glimpse of them, particularly Ivanka, who is seen as a fashion icon. The First Lady left Washington in a winter jacket in electrifying cobalt blue but changed mid-flight into a sleek white sundress that bared her arms. Upon landing, the Trumps were both handed traditional leis, the wreath of flowers worn around the necks that are presented upon arriving or leaving Hawaii as a symbol of affection. Just after 1 p.m. local time, Trump and the First Lady were greeted on the Hickam Air Force Base tarmac by Hawaii Governor David Ige and his wife Dawn Aminoige. President Trump and his wife arrived in Hawaii on Friday as he set out on the longest trip to Asia by an American president in more than a quarter century, looking for help to pressure North Korea to stand down from a nuclear crisis. The Trumps are seen at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii on Friday. Trump departs Friday for Japan, the first stop on the 5-nation, 11-day Asia journey. The first couple is seen after disembarking Air Force One. The First Lady left Washington in a winter jacket in electrifying cobalt blue but changed mid-flight into a sleek white sundress that bared her arms. Also on hand to welcome the President and the First Lady were Admiral Harry B. Harris and his wife, Bruni Bradley, according to the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. 9-year-old Michaela Webb, a 4th grader from a local school, gave the couple a and received a hug from Melania Trump. "I'm going to give the president and his wife a lei," Michaela said before Air Force One landed. When asked what she would say to the Trumps, Michaela said, "Aloha and welcome to the islands." They wanted a Hawaiian military girl to offer lei, her mother, Tanya Webb, said. After receiving lei, the Trumps then greeted some of the roughly 150 people who gathered to welcome them to Hawaii. Several of those who waited to see the Trumps were wearing red Make America Great Again hats. While Trump greeted supporters, there were also protests during his visit. The president is deeply unpopular in Hawaii, a state that leans heavily towards the Democrats. Some protesters carried signs that said "Welcome to Kenya," referencing former President Barack Obama's father, who was born in the East African country. Obama himself was born in Hawaii, but Trump's support of the birtherism conspiracy questioning the former president's birthplace prompted demonstrators to carry signs reading "Immigration gave me my family," according to The Independent. It is Trump's first visit to Hawaii as president. After his arrival, Trump met with leaders of the U.S. Pacific Command, which oversees U.S. military operations in the region. A likely discussion topic was North Korea's nuclear threat, a crisis that will shadow Trump's trip. He'll also meet with the governors of Alaska, Hawaii and Pacific U.S. territories. President Trump waves to the gathered crowd at the military base as he and First Lady Melania Trump deplane from Air Force One. The Trumps are expected to stay overnight on the island of Oahu before continuing on their way to Asia. The first couple appeared fresh after a nearly 10-hour flight from Washington, D.C. to the Aloha State. The Trumps are seen holding hands as they descend the steps from Air Force One while a supportive crowd waits to greet them upon landing. The Trumps were both handed traditional leis, the wreath of flowers worn around the necks that are presented upon arriving or leaving Hawaii as a symbol of affection. The Trumps are seen shaking hands with a throng of supporters after their arrival at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. U.S. servicemen and women were eager to shake Trump's hand and snap a picture of the president up close. On Friday, Trump gives a high five to a young supporter on hand at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. Just after his arrival, President Donald Trump bends to receive a flower lei. as First Lady Melania Trump far-right and Dawn Ige, the wife of Hawaii's Governor David Ige, look on 9-year-old Michaela Webb, a fourth grader from a local school, gave the couple and received a hug from Melania Trump. President Trump's Chief of Staff, John Kelly Center, shares a laugh with Hawaii Governor David Ige. Far left and his wife, Dawn Ige. Security and trade will loom large during Trump's first official visit to Asia. North Korea's missile and nuclear weapons programs are likely to be the issue dominating the first part of his trip, which includes stops in South Korea's capital and Beijing as well as Tokyo. Trade will figure throughout, both in North Asia and at his stops in Southeast Asia for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Summit in Vietnam and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations ASEAN leaders meeting in the Philippines. Trump's 12-day trip to Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam and the Philippines, ending on November 14, takes him out of Washington at a time when he has been beset by several issues. These include an intensifying federal investigation into Russian meddling in last year's election, New York's recovery from an attack earlier this week that killed 8 people, and debate over a Republican tax cut plan that, if approved by Congress, would be Trump's first major legislative victory. The trip began just days after Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort was indicted in the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election and after his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, faced Democratic calls to appear before Congress again to clarify his previous testimony about the campaign's Russia contacts. Amid the furor caused by the revelations, the Kremlin said on Friday that a meeting between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin at an Asian Economic Summit next week was being discussed, and Trump said it might happen. Trump's 12-day trip to Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam and the Philippines, ending on November 14, takes him out of Washington at a time when he has been beset by several issues. The President and First Lady walk away after Trump briefly spoke to reporters just before his departure on Marine One at the White House on Friday. Trump left the Capitol on Friday as the nation was focused on an intensifying federal investigation into Russian meddling in last year's election, New York's recovery from an attack earlier this week that killed 8 people, and debate over a Republican tax cut plan that, if approved by Congress, would be Trump's first major legislative victory. Before their departure, the First Lady stopped to take a selfie with a supporter just moments before she and her husband stepped aboard Marine One. "Who may have a meeting with Putin," Trump told Fox News, "and, again, Putin is very important because they can help us with North Korea. They can help us with Syria. We have to talk about Ukraine." Court documents made public on Monday also disclosed that a Trump campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, pleaded guilty early last month to lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The documents cited a March 2016 meeting, when Trump was campaigning for the presidency, and attended by Trump and Sessions, in which Papadopoulos offered to help arrange a meeting between Trump and Putin. On Saturday, President Trump will embark on a grueling 12-day tour of Asian countries. His first stop will be Japan, followed by South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. After an overnight stay in Oahu, President Trump will depart to Hawaii on Saturday for Asia. His first stop will be Tokyo, where he is scheduled to stay for 2 days beginning on Sunday. In Japan, Trump will have lunch with the Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe. The two men will then play 9 holes at a fancy golf club that just recently allowed women to become full-fledged members, according to the Washington Post. Trump plans to spend 48 hours in Japan, a sign of warm personal ties between him and the Japanese premier. His next stop, however, won't be as festive. Trump is scheduled to travel to another key ally, South Korea. In Seoul, Trump will spend 1 day there on Tuesday. Observers say this is a deliberate slight at the South Korean leader, President Moon Jae-in. While Abe shares Trump's view that a hard line needs to be taken against their common enemy, North Korea, Moon is considered a liberal who favors diplomacy with Pyongyang. The South Korean government was even opposed to American plans to station an anti-missile battery on the peninsula. Trump, in turn, has been annoyed at what he views as South Korea's talk of appeasement. The South Koreans are also wary of the close relationship between their former colonial ruler, Japan, and Washington. On Wednesday, Trump will travel to China. According to Vox, the Chinese plan on lavishing Trump with a welcome reserved for royalty. The state visit will include a military honor guard, a formal banquet, and other special arrangements that haven't been revealed. China hopes to flatter Trump as a negotiating tactic ahead of difficult talks on contentious issues like North Korea and trade. The president will also have significant on-time FaceTime with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. On Friday, Trump is scheduled to travel to Da Nang, Vietnam, which is hosting the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Economic Leaders Meeting. APEC is an organization made up of 21 countries, including the United States, that seeks to promote free trade in Asia and the Pacific region. On Sunday, November 12, Trump makes his last stop on the tour. The Philippines. Manila is hosting a summit of leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN), which includes Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam.